Dear friend who lives beside my world, I am typing this letter with a steady breath and a hopeful heart. I will not waste your time with grand explanations. You and I are already close enough to skip the preface. I want to tell you how a small notice on my desk changed the tilt of my day. It was a foreshadowing slip with a red stamp and my name in delicate ink. In my city a notice like that is not a hint but a force. It nudges the path of events the way gravity nudges rain. We treat a setup like you treat weather. We harry it, we plan for it, we fear it a little, and we use it when we must. The notice said a conversation would open a door that had been shut for years. The notice did not say which door or which person. It only said prepare an answer that sounds like a beginning. So I brushed the keys of my old keyboard and I began to write to you. I chose you because your world is our neighbour and because you listen. You listen without trying to control the ending. In my world that is rare and very kind. Here, story pressure is measurable. Set up sleeve traces on fabric, and on glass, and on the back of the neck. Inspectors carry little meters that hum when a promise has been made. When the hum rises, probabilities bend. An apple on the table starts to mean something more than fruit. A key dropped on the floor begins to weigh more than metal. A stranger in the lobby is not only a person but a line that asks for a reply. We call this the inertia of foreshadowing. Once set in motion, it prefers to pay itself off. You can resist, but resistance costs energy. We learn to pay that energy with care rather than fear. Check of potential is a common term here. Every unused tool gains quiet pressure with time. A violin on a shelf attracts lessons and sorrow and applause until someone opens the case. An old letter in a drawer attracts confession until the drawer slides open. We know this because we measure it. We hang a red string from each object and watch the pull. The string tightens when the moment to use the thing is near. Children understand this before they can spell their names. They will point to a locked box and say the box wants a scene. They are never wrong for long. We have ministries to keep the pressure safe. My badge says continuity office, but everyone calls us the thread keepers. We check homes for loose setups that might trip a family. We write permits for a safe amount of exposition at the start of a school term. We fine landlords who rent apartments with unresolved cliffhangers in the hallway. We do not ban risk because risk feeds meaning. We only try to keep the arcs from tearing people apart. Public transit is a sequence of montage casts that shorten the dull parts. You board at 7 and arrive at 8 with a gentle sense of progress. The city uses those rails to reduce accidental melodrama on workdays. Fridays allow a little more flourish, and every so often a tearful reunion. It is efficient and also tender in its own way. Insurance is a different beast here. We do not insure against fire as much as we insure against badly timed escalation. Dot armor is an actuarial product with strict limits and lots of footnotes. You can buy a light vest of safety for a commute across a rough neighborhood arc. You cannot buy immunity from a choice that defines your character. Underwriters run odds on you the way a lighthouse runs beams across rocks. They look at your protagonist index and your supporting ties and your unfinished debts. A high index lowers some risks and raises others. Fame can protect you from random harm, but it attracts sharper tests. Markets exist for objects that attract meaning. Traders watch charts of MacGuffin futures and try to guess which item will draw a crowd. Last spring a plain black notebook went through the roof. People bought copies and left them in cafes with their names on the inside cover. It made a season of heartfelt returns and 3 marriages. The ministry had to cool the market before the city overheated with coincidence. Now a notebook sells at a reasonable rate and weddings are back on a rhythm we can hold. Rights have evolved with these pressures, Consent sits above momentum in our lore. A kiss cannot be forced by trope or audience hunger. A character may step away from a tragic turn if the turn depends only on cliché. If the arc leans on craft and mutual truth, the choice becomes heavier. We teach children the difference in school. They practice, saying, "I will not be the joke today," and the room nods and moves on. We hold a parade for side characters each year. They walk with banners that say dignity is not a twist. The parade is warm and also a little stern. Science tries to model all this without poetry. Physicists talk about marathons, tiny packets of setup that travel along red threads. They collide and interfere and form beats in patterns we can plot. We have a beat spectrometer in a university lab. It can predict the minute when an apology will finally be said if both people keep breathing. It cannot say if the apology will land clean. For that we need the human ear and the human time. Some groups reject the weight of prediction. They call themselves randomists and they throw noise festivals at night. They scatter dice through streets and paint crossroads with shuffled numbers. They believe chance is a moral right. I visit their events sometimes and stand very still. I listen to the chaos and wait for the pattern that refuses to arrive. It feels like a good nap after a week of careful choices. Everyday life still looks like life. My neighbour grows herbs on the windowsill and names them after years she wishes to revisit. The names do not force anything, but they invite memory at dinner. A school near me holds a quiet ceremony for unfinished stories at the end of term. The children place paper boats in a fountain and let some marks drift. Teachers clap and no one asks for a tear. It is not sad. It is tidy and it is kind. You asked me once if cliffhangers frighten our little ones. They do if adults leave them hanging overnight. So we have a city rule for bedtime. An unfinished scare must be given a soft turn before lights out. A parent might say the shadow is a coat, or the creek is a pipe, or the hero will rest here now. This rule saved many mornings and 2 school districts. My work has not been spotless. A few years ago I refused a tragedy with my name on it. It was not noble. It was tired and small and I wanted an easy week. The thread shifted as threads do and settled on someone I loved. They carried the weight with grace and with a joke I still cannot repeat. I have been careful since then to carry my share. I know that balance is not a god but a practice. I teach that practice to trainees with patience and tea. I have learned to read the room for genre whether the way sailors read the sea. Monday mornings smell like slice of life and small carriage. Election seasons taste like satire, but we keep the taste gentle at schools. Winter has more redemption and spring has more mischief. Summer tries to be a blockbuster until we turn down the volume at parks. Autumn lets a quiet mystery walk with you to the bus. You may wonder how this letter can cross to you if our worlds do not share the same pressure. The answer is boring and dear. A friend with a foot in both rooms leaves us a narrow gap. We pass notes through the gap when the pressure is mild and the day is calm. I take turns with 2 others and I write at night because the gap likes the dark. I promised you a window into a day that feels ordinary here. This morning I made tea and set 1 cup on the table next to a notebook. The notebook began to attract attention as soon as the steam rose. I did not want attention. I wanted quiet. So I moved the cup to the window and the notebook calmed down. I learned that steam amplifiers set up like a spotlight. It is a small trick, but it makes breakfast easier. At work I reviewed a street permit for a bakery that wanted a miniature reconciliation at noon. The baker hoped to mend a rift with her sister during the lunch rush. She asked for 2 minutes of soft piano and 1 timely customer order. We approved the piano and denied the order because it implied a customer who had not consented. The sisters sat at a side table and spoke without background cues. They forgave each other anyway, and the bread came out like sunlight. I wrote in the margin that love can handle low staging when trust is high. In the afternoon I visited an old library with too much Chekhov potential. The stacks told like tides, and 5 objects whistled at once. We made tags for each and logged a schedule for safe use. A locket would carry a secret next week. A map would be used on the grand day. A pair of shoes would do nothing until winter, when a child would need sturdy soles. We left the other 2 for the randomists to diffuse at their festival. At dusk I met a young man who feared he was a villain. He had clever hands and a crooked grin and a habit of watching doors. He believed the city would push him toward a fall because his angles looked sharp. I told him that look is not destiny. I told him momentum cannot cross consent without cost. I told him he could choose to be a locksmith instead of a thief. He laughed and said that was the same skill with a different hat. I said a hat can change your life. We shook hands and the meters went quiet. He texted later that he signed up for night classes. I made a note and smiled on the train. The notice on my desk returned when I got home. It was warm as if someone had held it. The edges fluttered like a small bird that wanted a window. I realized the conversation it promised was not in my street. It was you. It was this letter. The door it spoke of is the door between our days. The beginning it needed was the first line you already read. I felt foolish and relieved and a little proud. I should tell you about one more rule we live by. We call it the law of fair return. If a story takes something precious, it must leave a tool you can use. The tool might be a skill or a friend or a quiet piece of truth. It may not be equal to what was taken at once. It will be equal over time if you keep tending it. This law is not written in a book. It is written in how we design our days. We teach it to children with simple tasks and small joys. We review it at staff meetings with blunt questions and patient pauses. I want to offer you a practice from our side that works without any ministry. Before you start a day, pick one setup you truly want. Name it with 10 plain words. Place one honest cue in the path of that setup. Give it a gentle push with a call or a note or a walk. Then let go for a while and do the next right thing. Check at dusk to see what moved. If it moved, thank the day and move the next piece. If it did not move, reduce friction or ask for help. This practice is boring in the best way. It keeps the drama where it belongs and keeps you from being eaten by noise. I also want to share a warning that costs nothing and saves sleep. Be careful with empty hints. Empty hints are the same as empty calories for the mind. They buzz and fade and leave you hungry and twitching. If a hint does not point at a real action you can take, set it down. Protect your attention as if it were bred during a long winter. Spend it on work that feeds you and on people who can look you in the eye. I wish you could see our bulletin boards at the bus stations. Instead of ads for miracle cures, they show little checklists for kind arcs. One says call the neighbour you keep meaning to thank. One says repair the lamp that makes the entrance warm. One says write the apology that has been drying on the windowsill. People read the boards and nod and tap their pockets for pens. The boards are not magic. They only make the good thing easier to start. I know this sounds neat and tidy from a distance. It is messy when you live inside it. People still hurt each other, and lie and hide and get in their own way. We still make bad jokes when we should be quiet. We still chase the wrong glitter because glitter is fun. The law of story does not make us noble. It only makes our patterns honest enough to see. You asked once if anyone ever escapes the pull forever. No one does, and no one needs to. We only learn to surf the slope with soft ease. We only learn to rest on flats when they come. We only learn to fall without breaking when a turn is sharp. That is enough. That is a life I can bless. I have not told you about my friend who declined a third act surprise. She got a notice that asked her to accept a sudden triumph. It looked lovely on paper and terrible in her chest. She wrote back that her year needed ordinary rhythm and small pride. The ministry granted a delay and a new garden plot behind her building. She grew peppers and beans in the stack of clean afternoons. At the end of the season she felt ready for a larger turn. She asked for a challenge that made use of quiet strength. She got it, and she did well, and the peppers tasted like a sunrise. You might be curious about our names and how they bend meaning. We sometimes pick names that do not lean hard in any direction. It keeps us from slipping into a role we did not choose. It is a game and also a shield. I have kept my name plain for that reason. When I sign forms it looks like a blank tile at the end of a word. That emptiness keeps me light on my feet. People ask me what scares me most in this work. It is not tragedy. Tragedy can be carried with friends and teeth and a better chair. It is not even chaos. Chaos gets sleepy if you feed it patience. It is the slow creep of empty hint after empty hint. The creep that turns months into crumbs. The creep that fills a life with noise and calls it news. I fight the creep with how I write this letter. I answer the notice with a door that opens and stays open. I put a hand through and I hold on to you. Tonight the genre with us says mild mystery with a chance of mercy. That feels like a good time to pose a question you can carry tomorrow. What setup do you want your morning to pull toward? What cue can you place in the first 10 minutes after you wake? What act of care will your late afternoon be able to pay off? You do not need a badge to do this. You only need a little stillness and a pencil. I will end soon because the app prefers letters that stop before the hour. The notice on my desk has cooled. The red string on my shelf hangs slack. The kettle clicks and the window shows a slice of quiet street. A bus slides by in montage and the passengers look rested. I am glad I wrote to you. I am glad you allowed me to finish the arc of this day. Please think of me when you choose the weight of your hints. Please think of your own plot armour as a borrowed coat. Wear it when crossings are rough and hang it up when you reach a warm room. Please treat strangers as characters who might carry a small tool you need. Please treat yourself as someone who deserves a kind edit. I want to offer you a tiny ritual for endings. Say thank you to the day out loud even if no one hears you. Name one thing you can repair tomorrow that will make a room kinder. Place one cue on the table where morning will see it. Leave the rest to gravity that cares for stories. Sleep. I will not sign with a name because names lean. I leave you with a simple seal. From your friend who lives beside your world. Thank you for listening to the end of my letter. If this message gave you a clear thought, or a soft smile, please tap like. If you want more letters from neighbouring worlds, please subscribe to this channel. I would love to read your reflections and your own small setups in the comments. You can support the channel through the QR code in the bottom right or through the link in the video description. In that description you will also find links to other works from a completely different series. I hope you will watch those when you have a quiet hour. Until our next letter, please be gentle with your hints and brave with your payoffs. I will meet you again soon, and I will bring a good beginning.